is that amid all of that work and innovation comes the next big idea. This morning promises to provide robust conversations that I know we're all looking forward to regarding the development of Wisconn Valley, how the coming changes will impact communities and businesses, and how each of us will work together to meet those needs. This is an exciting time for all of us and for the future economic health of our region and of our state. UW-Whitewater is committed and will continue to be a strong partner in these efforts. So welcome, we are delighted that you're here, and I know you're going to have a grand day.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome, Chancellor. I know we're all pleased to be here, and not only is this a beautiful building, but I think it's a great setting for what we're going to be talking about today. I would like to first thank our guest speakers for being here. A lot of them drove quite a distance to get here, and we're really pleased to have them there. Before we get to that, though, I would like to do a few thank yous to our sponsors. I want to thank the university and their staff for putting this all together. It's a great venue, and really appreciate that. Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, or WIBIC, was the one who suggested this, and they helped sponsor this event today. And I also want to thank our trusty videographer, Ryan Bencheimer, from Ideal Impressions, who captures these events for us so that people that are not here that would like to see that can do that after the fact, or any of you who would like to review this after the fact. So really appreciate that. Some of you have probably noticed our recurring 3 drivers theme, and this is a collaborative effort between our organization, which is Walworth County Economic Development Alliance, and the Chambers and Tourism bureaus in the county. And so it's Delavan Lake Chamber, it's Discover Whitewater, it's East Troy Area Chamber, it's Elkhorn Area Chamber and Tourism Center, it's Geneva Lake West Chamber, Visit Lake Geneva, and Walworth County Visitors Bureau. I want to give a special thanks to my partner for this event today, who helped pull this all together, and that's Marie Koch from Whitewater Chamber. I also want to thank Kristen Burton for all of her help at the university here to put this together. So to begin, I'd like to share what I think is kind of a disturbing set of statistics about the population projection growth for Wisconsin going forward in the next 30 years, and it's according to a study that UW-Madison did in 2013. The study indicated that from birth to 17, the projected increase is about 3.1%. Then when you move to the population growth in the working age, which would be at 18 to 64 years old approximately, it's 0.1%. So it's not 1%, but 0.1%. So most of the projected growth over the next 30 years currently is in the elderly population, which would be that 65 to, let's say, 84, which almost doubles in that time period, and then the 85 plus is more than doubling at that point. However, a catalytic event such as Foxconn has the potential to change that trajectory. And it's not just because it's one large company, but it's because it's a company that has a large ecosystem that has to support it, that is technology-oriented, innovation-oriented, that will then drive the curriculum and training needs of all the education partners. And that, as we will hear, will also attract young workers and other workers, and also help retain workers in the area. So the statistics that I start out with, I think as an economic developer, are very scary, and I think as business people that are looking at longer term, it should be scary. And so I think what we're talking about today is a great opportunity in a lot of ways. There's certainly a lot of challenges, and we'll cover those. But it's something that we'd like to explore further today. And we just broadly have connected this with Silicon Valley. That's the obvious reference with Wisconn Valley. But as you'll see, there are definitely some parallels and potentially some things that will follow suit. As you will hear, it's a huge economy. Silicon Valley, I think they call it a $3 trillion neighborhood because of partners like Google and Tesla and Apple and Intel. So there's certainly a lot of potential there that we can see. We're going to explore 3 broad topics here with our guest speakers: innovation and technology, workforce, and supply chain management. To get things started, I will invite one of our guest speakers up who has unique experience. She grew up in Wisconsin. She spent almost 30 years in Silicon Valley experiencing that whole evolution, and has experience in staffing. She's currently the CEO of Polaris Talent Group. So please help me welcome Marie Watkins to the stage.
Good morning. So I will say, first of all, I hate mics, which is ironic because during the Racing Startup Week, we're doing a Get to Love Your Mic night for entrepreneurs, because we all hate mics. So, as Derek said, I'm Marie Watkins. I grew up in Racine, went to Marquette, had a winter where I hadn't seen the sun in like 70 days, had a midlife crisis at age 20, and moved to California. So I transferred to UC San Diego, didn't expect to stay on the West Coast. I assumed I'd finish my degree, come back, right? My family was here. And then this little thing called the internet happened. So I was in graduate school at Claremont Grad School, and the Mosaic browser had started. It was 1994, and somebody said, hey, why don't we put the syllabus up on this thing called the website? And I said, well, okay, I play with tech, and so I figured out how to hack together the first sort of class browser, so to speak, for putting a syllabus up. And that changed my path. Instead of going for a PhD in literature, I went into tech. So in 1995, I started as a tech writer, became a tech developer, and was building websites on the first Netscape browsers. And the company that I was working for said, hey, you have all the skills to be a recruiter. You speak tech, you can write, you like people, you can analyze lots of literature, and try recruiting. So in 1995, I ended up working in tech and lived through the first .com boom in San Diego. And the company I was working for was a Microsoft partner company, so I was immediately involved with Seattle in the 90s, Silicon Valley in the 90s. The company that I was with built the pets.com website, which, as many of you know, was the biggest failure of the .com era. So I got to see the highs and lows of that. So that's kind of my context of I'm coming at this with the perspective of lived through it, didn't expect to live through it. It was very disruptive, both personally, because I changed a whole career path as this thing emerged, as well as economically and professionally. So I want to kind of chat with you about the 3 cities that I have deep experience in. So San Diego, Silicon Valley, and Seattle. Okay. That's not projecting. There we go. That's right. Anyhow, and so now I have Polaris Talent, which I founded with 2 co-founders. One is Marshall Folger, who's here today, and the other is my daughter, Roma Watkins. And we're setting out to be a very human-centric solution to technical recruiting, and we work specifically with small and emerging companies. So even though I have global experience with Microsoft and Verizon Enterprise, which is 200,000 people, I've done work with Walmart, which is of course a Fortune 10. I like the smaller pool. I like being directly influential into the next generation of this. All right, so 3 drivers. So as I talk through this story, the 3 things I'm kind of wanting to focus on are that 3 things about Silicon Valley is that, 1, understand it's a mindset, not a place, okay? Silicon Valley is shorthand for tech culture, right? When we think about Wisconn Valley, we think about Silicon Valley, Telecom Valley, Biotech Beach, Silicon Slopes, all these places around the country that have picked up these like clever marketing names, that's supposed to trigger that thought of like, oh, we could be like Silicon Valley. So again, it's a mindset that is portable. It is very global. I think tech culture more than anything else is a pervasive thing. Like I could get on an airplane anywhere in the world and I could find my techies. They're characterized by at least one logo of a company. They have an Oracle backpack. They have a North Face jacket with a company name stitched on the arm. They've got a dongle that says Docker, okay? We find our tribe through branding, and it's everywhere. So the three themes that I kind of want to talk through is that Silicon Valley is disruptive but stagnant at the same time. It is creative and conservative at the same time, and it's exciting and terrifying at the same time. And so I think when we think about Foxconn coming, you see the parallels, right? It's going to be disruptive, but some things won't change. It's going to be exciting, but we're all a little scared, right? And it's very created daily, hence the disruptive part. But it's stagnant. Like every VC wants the Uber of whatever. They want the next MySpace, the next Facebook, the next whatever comes next. So that's where you get some of the stagnation of like, it seems very new and different, but if you look at the underlying, like today's companies that are IPOing are all built on the foundation of what came before. They're funded by the same people. There's a group in Silicon Valley called the PayPal Mafia, and literally there was 5 or 6 guys out of Stanford that in the 90s started PayPal. Then from there, one of them created LinkedIn, another one went to eBay, and on and on. So you have the same players with the same very conservative bankers, with the same pedigree, same school, same VCs, whatever. So that's where the stagnation comes in, but yet there's this appearance that everybody wants to create something, right? Every engineer in the valley is working on a side gig. Everybody's side gigging. The story of HP being built in somebody's garage while they work for another company is still happening, but they still have a certain pedigree, right? It's like they're all Stanford Berkeley grads. They all went through Y Combinator. They all got funded by somebody on Sand Hill Road, which is going to be a challenge here as companies, grow out of Foxconn to create a VC and angel community here, get high net worth individuals here, really excited about it, and not always have to go to the West Coast for that. So the other creative conservative part is that new ideas have to honor the past, right? There's disruption allowed, but it still has to step the path. It can't jump forward 10 steps or you're considered a renegade, so you still sort of follow it. The other interesting thing about Silicon Valley that everybody misses is that it's a very conservative place politically. There's a perception of, California liberals, San Francisco flakes, whatever you want to call them. But the people who are actually making the decisions and providing the money are very conservative. They're fiscally conservative. They lean a little liberal socially because they know they need that to attract the workforce. But at the end of the day, it's a very fiscally conservative place, which does also follow politics in a lot of ways. So I think that's a misperception about West Coast tech companies, is that they tend to lean politically liberal, but they're not. They're technologically liberal, but formulaically conservative. And then the exciting and terrifying. The company I worked at recently was called Medallia, and if you've ever been to the Apple store, you go to Marriott, you get the survey afterwards, they're the ones that power that. And our CEO there, as he talked about the IPO and entrepreneur journey, he refers to it as the rattling rocket ship. You're on this rattling rocket ship going to the moon. Think Marvin the Martian, right, the little thing. And you're excited, you want to go to the moon, but you're holding on for dear life because it's rattling, bolts are flying around, you're not sure you're going to get there, and you're just hoping that it all holds together. And that's the tech industry, and I think we're doing a little bit of that around Foxconn because the rocket ship right now in southeast Wisconsin is rattling, right? We're not really quite sure what's coming and what's holding on. So this is where Silicon Valley comes in the mindset space of like, the hottest business book of the last 2 years is Carol Dweck's Growth Mindset. And if you have not read it, I highly recommend it. Again, at Medallia, we gave every person who interviewed there a copy of it. Every employee got it. In that book, they talk about there's 2 types of people. There's those with a fixed mindset. It can't change. I'm always going to do everything. If I fail, it's because it happened to me. It was an outside force. Growth mindset is everything's an opportunity. We can grow, we can learn, it can change. And so I just think as we move into the Foxconn era, that growth mindset is going to be super important here. Not everything's going to be right, but I think if we, growth is good, disruption is good, it helps a little bit. So So I brought a video. This is about a 3-minute history of Silicon Valley. And this one and the next two, what I want you to notice is that pedigree I was talking about, like things that came from the predecessor, and the building blocks of this.
Silicon Valley is an almost $3 trillion neighborhood, thanks to companies like Apple, Google, and Tesla. But it wasn't always this way.
It was this initial thing, right, this foundation with the military, and then each innovation built on it, but it was the same people, right? You saw the pedigree of like these guys, the Traders 8, they started these companies in arm, and that's still happening. And I think that's going to happen here, right? We're going to have Foxconn come, you're going to have people work there that spin off, or the subsidiary companies and those come. But what I wanted to jump to is so how many of you have seen HBO's Silicon Valley, the TV show? Okay. That is the most accurate depiction of day-to-day life in Silicon Valley and in companies. And I've got 2 opening sequences from it. It's 11 seconds each. It's their opener each season. This is season 1. And in season 1, you're going to see little buildings and blow-up logos for Intel, eBay, MySpace, Napster, YouTube, HP, Yahoo, Facebook, Oracle, Adobe. And the Apple campus ring right here, which is being built in Cupertino, is just starting. Okay? It happens that fast in the time that I've been up there. Oh my God, I've seen so many companies come and go. Like the Microsoft campus is at 101 and Shoreline Drive, and it's 5 buildings built in the 80s. Silicon Graphics used to be up the street, which was an old school, 1980s kind of company. SGI moved out, Google moved in, and the Googleplex was built, and that is now 80% of what's on Shoreline Drive. And the difference that you start to see is like my commute time when I go up there from the hotel to Microsoft used to be like 7 minutes. Now it's like 35, and God help you if you get through the light in more than 4 rotations. And it takes about that long. So I'm going to just, a couple more things on Silicon Valley and then I'll move on. But the question on everyone's mind is always the cost of living, right? Silicon Valley median income is $117,000. New engineering grads that are getting recruited by Microsoft are getting about 85 to 90K out of the box, and they still need to be trained. Okay, they're coming in with CS degrees, but they're not functional to the day-to-day work yet. Still 95K. And then of course that brings up housing, which I know we're all worried about. The interesting thing there and in San Diego is housing prices are high because people refuse to build more houses. They refuse to figure out ways to go vertical, they refuse to find ways to go a little further. So I will challenge anyone in this room that's a planner as we think about housing moving forward. The supply and demand thing does get to be just because people don't want more housing. All right, so Silicon Valley, that's that story. It's been interesting up there. But Seattle is also Silicon Valley. So this is Microsoft's campus in Redmond. I don't know how many thousands of acres it takes up, but it's its own city. They have their own healthcare, they have stores, grocery stores, they have everything. And Seattle's another one. Boeing was there first, and because Boeing was there, Bill Gates' dad bought him a PC when he was 8 years old. And he went to a private school that had a computer club when he was a little kid. And because of Boeing, we had Bill Gates. And because of Boeing, we also had people who could invest in Bill Gates. And so you start to see in Silicon Valley what happened you see in Seattle what happened in Silicon Valley. You have the established pedigree company that had the spin-offs. These numbers are the number of people employed by the top major public companies in Silicon Valley, or in Seattle. So you've got Boeing at 82,000, Microsoft is 43K, and Microsoft has 140,000 globally, by the way. There's just a small portion out there. Amazon's headquartered there, Starbucks, Costco, and Nordstrom's. So these are very recognized names, but it's really only those 5 Fortune 500 companies that are driving that entire region, and it all goes back to Boeing. And so is San Diego. San Diego has played with names over the years. We were originally America's finest city, tech's perfect climate, biotech beach, telecom valley, wireless valley. I mean, the Convention Visitor Bureau has played with it a lot, but the reality is Qualcomm did for San Diego what Foxconn is going to do here. So in 1985, Qualcomm spun out of Titan Linkabit, which was a group of engineers from UCSD who had been in defense, who formed Titan Linkabit, also to work in defense. Qualcomm spun out. 1985 it spun out. By 1991 they had a hugely successful IPO because of the CDMA chips that are in all of our phones, and they're licensed by every wireless device on the planet. They had 7,500 employees in 1997, 70 ecosystem companies, okay, 70 came to San Diego or spun out of Qualcomm to support wireless. And so I think when we look at the parallel, Qualcomm, Foxconn, I honestly think Foxconn named themselves that because at one point they were in a patent battle with Qualcomm, and I do think there's a cousin relationship there. But the 70 ecosystem companies were everything from the suppliers, they were partner companies, and there were people that left Qualcomm to start their own companies that had a right to the IP they created for Qualcomm, and so they're part of it. 2018, Qualcomm locally is 35,000 employees in 40 San Diego locations amongst 120 they have worldwide. So the previous picture that I showed you of Qualcomm's headquarters is in it's on Sorrento Mesa. We call it Qualcomm Mesa because it's all Qualcomm. It's every building, every street is Qualcomm. So the impact of what happens when you have one company that allows their people to, you know, keep their IP, grow, I think could potentially happen with Foxconn too. You know, we've got this big company coming, we're all excited about these 13,000 jobs, right, that are coming now in all these cities. But you fast forward that 10 years of the ecosystem that will grow up, that they either bring with them or that's developed here, and you scale this out. So the interesting thing with Qualcomm, when they had their IPO, they did really well. And by about 6 years later, they've done so well, they did a 4-for-1 stock split. Their stock had gotten up to $470 some a share. And one of my neighbors he was an early employee, he had so much stock, sold it, kept working, and this thing in tech, when people have their IPO, they don't go retire. They use that money to fund more businesses. He kept working, and his only homage to the fact he'd made a fortune was he had a new Porsche that had a license plate THXQCOM. Thanks, Qualcomm. That was what was on our street. But that was the only way I knew he'd sold his stock. I'm like, I see your Porsche. So, you know, I think this is going to be our story here. You know, we're going to have Foxconn, we're going to have the companies that come on its coattails, we're going to have the companies it creates, and then anybody from that decides to start a company is going to go out and seed the ecosystem. But then, you know, quality of life, right? I threw this picture in because this is San Diego at night, on a full moon night. And we didn't lose our natural resources. You know, Lake Michigan is important, right? And we love our forests and all that. San Diego, as you can see, has managed to keep the palm trees, keep the harbor clean. This Quonset hut building over here is a Navy base that has stayed where it was. The downtown skyline got huge and vibrant. But in the foreground, you can see people's hobbies. They kept their ships, they kept their sailing, they kept their... So San Diego, if any of you get to get out there, has done it right. It's had good growth, it's had smart growth. It was turbulent. We had a period where it was not good growth, but we finally got it figured out because looking to Silicon Valley and Seattle, what they did wrong, San Diego had a chance to correct it. So, but then I will leave you with this. So, are we the next Silicon Valley? And I think all the signs are pointing that this is, you know, the mindset, the culture. I think it's all coming. So, thank you.
Our next guest has intimate knowledge of Foxconn and all the infrastructure that would be needed to support that. He is currently the Strategic Economic Initiatives Director at the Wisconsin Department of Administration. So glad that you can be here. Please help join me in welcoming Matt Moroney.
Well, good morning, everybody. So thank you for coming. And that was an incredible lead-in about my vision of what's going to happen with this project as we move forward. I mean, what was described there is exactly kind of the game plan, I think, for the area. And I think we're going to learn from other communities as well, what they did well as well. Great, awesome. Yep, so I'm going to do an hour presentation in under 10 minutes. So bear with me, all right? And speed is important to Foxconn. Speed is very important, so I'm a little to the high standard that they've set. So basically, what does Foxconn produce? Take a look at all the different products that they are planning on producing. So I think, you know, people think of iPhones. It's much broader than that. I think the thing that excites us is like medical devices, autonomous vehicle type of technology. All those things are coming here to Wisconsin, and they want to push the envelope. They host like 80-some thousand patents that they hold. And so they want to bring that here. And as they've gotten further into this project, they've talked more and more about, wow, you guys have some interesting things here as we've done more and more investigation on the state. And they're really looking at trying to make this a research and technology, research and development and technology hub. For their operations, because they're like, the talent wants to be in America. This is a great spot for us to kind of push it that way. So what started out as a real big discussion about, just manufacturing is really morphing into something a lot bigger, a lot more exciting for the state and for the state's future. So here's a little bit of the campus site. You can kind of see, so right now we're really focusing on Area 1, Phase 1, that's about 800 acres. The total campus is just under 3,000 acres. They're in the process of master planning that whole area as we move forward. And they've got a lot of different exciting things. There's a great video about the campus that Derek will forward after this event is over, so you can kind of monitor and take a look at what they have planned, but very, very exciting if you see those renderings. So here we go. The buildings in yellow are the ones that we're focusing on right now, trying to get up and constructed. The large yellow building at the very top of the slide, that is just under 3 million commercial square feet. So that building is about 3 times the size of Brookfield Square Mall. And we will start vertical construction of that building in April, and we'll have it done by the end of 2020. Speed, 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 speed. They constantly talk about speed. In the tech world, you have to be fast, otherwise you're out of business, right? That's the way it works. So that's one of the reasons why they selected Wisconsin was speed. Our challenge was when we announced they wanted to break ground quickly, right? Follow all the laws, do all the permitting, but set it up in such a way we can move through the process quickly. It took a lot of planning to get it done. We're proud to report we were up to the challenge. We were faster than they even expected. From a year when we became aware of the project, we had construction equipment moving onto the site to start construction, and we had all the permits in place. Speed, speed, speed. So this is Extreme Home Makeover in commercial construction, and these are not simple buildings. These are high-tech buildings with clean rooms, lots of construction that we're really not that familiar with. So we've got to build up that area in the state as well, that kind of construction technology. We have a multi-purpose building going under construction right now. This will be complete. We started this at the end of August. It's 120,000 commercial square feet. We're almost ready to have it complete. It should be complete, if not by October 31st. The week after, it'll be done. It's a very important building for us as we build these other facilities, right? It'll be an important staging building because as we build the other buildings, we'll be moving equipment in at the same time. Here's just a picture of the excavation site, because a lot of people think, it's not really happening. I mean, I still hear that. So this is, 800 acres that is actively dirt being moved. If you get a chance to drive by it, you should drive by it. It's mind-blowing what's going on out there. They have about 140 pieces of equipment out there, about 350 workers per day. As long as the weather cooperates, we run into a little bit of a wet spell, as you all know. And they're massively moving, trying to get all the grading done. So when construction season starts next spring, we're ready to go. We're locked and loaded, and we're going to be going fast. Just a little bit of statistics about all the utility work going on there. If you've driven around in that area, it's a mess, right? We have to get out in front of Foxconn, with utilities. It's the only way this project works. So we're proud to report the local, federal, state cooperation, get out in front has been fantastic. We're ahead. And not oftentimes can you say that, right? That government is ahead of the private sector. Well, we are. We need to stay there for a little while. They're catching up, but we're still ahead. All right, a very important part of this is including Wisconsin in this. So Foxconn has voluntarily agreed to set goals, business goals, workforce participation goals. You can see them there. There's independent studies that basically say it'd be difficult for us to reach these goals on the construction side, from Ernst & Young. but Foxconn's committed to Wisconsin. And I think the other big message is we're providing mechanism on construction and also supply chain for people to have the opportunity to participate in this project. It's really as simple as signing up on a website, and I'll hit those slides at the very end. But anybody that is interested in either doing construction work or doing any kind of supply work with Foxconn, sign up on the website. They are actively looking at the website to find their construction teams and suppliers. And the other nice commitment is lowest bid, you have to be competitive. If you're competitive and you have a Wisconsin first approach, you will win the bid. That's what happened with the excavation. They were not the lowest bid, but it was a collaboration of 29 Wisconsin companies got together to put the proposal forward, and Foxconn selected it. And it's about a $120 million excavation bid, right? Seems, hey, that's a good sized number. It's $10 billion construction investment total that's coming our way. So we're just in the infancy of this project. So here's the impact to Wisconsin so far. So this is the number of contractors, in the state. You can see we're meeting our goal. And you can see already at this very early period, look at the businesses that are involved in this and their locations throughout the state of Wisconsin. Here's the workforce. It's amazing, right? Hoffman Construction on Black River Falls has doubled their size due to Foxconn. Already, once again, just in the infancy of this project. So the best part's coming, supply chain, right? That is where we're going to get the biggest bang for the buck as we go forward. So look to BMW. So we've looked at some other states that have a little bit of history here with bringing in a new industry into their state, and how does that results over a period of time. So BMW in South Carolina has been very, very insightful to us. 3-to-1, direct and indirect jobs. And look at where these auto clusters and how they spread across the state of South Carolina, right? That's what we want to have happen here with Foxconn. That's the transformational nature of Foxconn as we talk about it as we move forward. So, supply chain marketplace. So real quick on this, there's a website. Once again, sign up. So just, yesterday, or 2 days ago, it was Friday, Foxconn's logistics team, Jesta, called, said, hey, we love supply chain marketplace. We've been able to identify companies that can help us with our logistics needs. There's not enough of them. Can you put out another notice to try to get more companies to sign up on supply chain marketplace? So we will be issuing a bulletin today with our newsletter, asking more companies specifically in those areas to sign up. That's the commitment, right? It's great to talk about it, but when they actually deliver, that's what makes it so incredibly exciting. So, and there's other things that are happening. So these innovation centers, I think the previous presentation did a great job of realizing the connection between the university system and the company, right? That's what these innovation centers are about. They're really about 3 different things, right? So you've got the one in Milwaukee. That's our North American headquarters. Fantastic. That was not talked about with Foxconn when we were talking about the project. Huge development for us, right? That's another statement that they're calling this home. But really, 3 things all these innovation centers are doing. First thing is they are trying to connect close to university systems to build talent for their company. Secondly, what they're trying to do is connect with small businesses, have them use their technology, identify new uses, and help those companies grow. Third thing is helping to reach out to other areas to build their supply chain. So if you take a look at these, those are the 3 main purposes of these facilities, and it makes strong business sense for them to do this. And so they've announced innovation centers now in Eau Claire, they've announced one in Green Bay, there's one in Racine, and then the list of things that are happening just keep growing. $100 million to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for engineering. They want to put a facility, engineering facility right on campus with the UW system that they're actively planning right now and trying to put that together. You're looking at the venture fund capital, that they created with other companies in the area of $100 million. Ginseng. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, the positive things that they're doing, and the impact that they're already having. And once again, I don't even think it's been been a year since we've signed the WEC contract. Under a year, and look at the investment that's already flowed to the state's way from Foxconn. And we're seeing, I mean, that's ground zero, right? You know, and they're having positive impacts, as you can read. I think the biggest, what keeps me up at night is two things. I can tell everybody this. One is, if we get into this situation, no, I gotta have this, I gotta have that, and don't keep the big picture in mind, we're gonna lose and not really recognize the full benefits of this. And so far, everybody's been working really hard together, because there's a lot of issues, housing, transportation, right? That we have workforce, that we have to address as we go forward. So we have to work at it in a collaborative team member. And this has caused so much collaboration, it's very exciting. Number two, if we don't maximize this incredible opportunity, shame on us, right? So those are two things that keep me awake at night, trying to figure out how do we maximize this throughout the state of Wisconsin. And here's the contract provisions. So you can see the blue line is the minimum they need to have to qualify for tax credits. The red line is the amount of employment they need to maximize their tax credits. So they're aggressively hiring right now as we speak, to move up and get a higher number of employees. But you can see it dramatically starts ramping up, especially as the facilities come online with Foxconn. There's a lot of myths about the contract. I don't have time to go into that. Needless to say, it's a great contract for Wisconsin. They do not get a dime until they perform. And there's clawback provisions. We feel really good about how the contract is structured for Wisconsin. So here's the websites. Get involved. So it's as simple as visiting these websites. And if you want to keep up on Foxconn, we created an e-newsletter. So sign up on the e-newsletter. Every 2 weeks you'll get an update. Unfortunately, well, it's fortunate and unfortunate. It's a LinkedIn newsletter because there's so much going on, right? Constantly, new things going on, new announcements as we go forward. So I encourage you, sign up on that website, and then you see there's specialty websites for construction and supply chain marketplace. But the main message is they're here, it's happening very, very quickly. I mean, to build these facilities the way that we're moving is incredible. In the WC contract, they were not supposed to start excavation until January 1st. And we're going to be 90% done with excavation already. I mean, it's moving very, very rapidly, and it's part of their strategic business decision. And I think the most important thing is the citizens and the businesses of Wisconsin have the opportunity with the way we're going about this project to participate. And it's really up to them to decide whether they want to participate or not. So I ran through that fast. So it's exciting. And thank you, Derek, for allowing us the opportunity to come in.
Thank you, Matt. That was a good lead-in for our next speaker. Our next speaker is an expert in supply chain management, and he's one of UW Whitewater's own. He's going to talk to us about the status of our supply chain in Wisconsin. So please please join me in welcoming Dr. Prasad.
I'll tell you something. This talk about manufacturing brings tears to my eyes. I know many of you get all excited when you see, some new cafe coming, new restaurant. To me, that's I don't mean to put it down, but to me, I see a factory coming up, or I see some kind of machines being moved down the highways. That's really cool to me. And there's a little historical context. I originally come from India, and India was deindustrialized in terms of the colonization. And the only reason that, in my viewpoint, is a country like India or any other country or regions can do well is if they got a solid manufacturing base. I'm biased towards this. I've been in this, I've been teaching for 30 years in manufacturing. And in fact, I was in the border region with Mexico when I taught at the University of Texas, and we worked with the maquiladoras. Those are the factories that were put across the border. And the same thing, the patterns in terms of you had some companies come and then their supply chains develop. So there's the story that I can share with that, but I'll give you the more nuts and bolts. And then of course, you have other information about the exact details of Foxconn. So, I'm really happy that I'm at Whitewater. We have a wonderful supply chain program, and we've got fantastic faculty. That's Yeah. Okay, so first thing I want to do is, let's go to nuts and bolts. We talk supply chain and that all seems, what the heck is all that? The first thing is something we call bill of materials. So bill of materials is like a recipe. So for example, if you are making an omelet, you start with eggs and you get tomatoes and cheese and all that, right? But this first investment by Foxconn is actually a restaurant. It's just and now they're hiring the chefs. They haven't even they're just building the restaurant, right? They haven't done much more than that. But if you want to think about the supply chains, then you have to think about where are the eggs going to come from? Where are the tomatoes? And who's going to grow them? And then who's going to grow the fertilizer? Well, where it comes from? I mean, you start thinking about the whole context of what a supply chain is. That's what it's going to be involved. And then what you want to do is think, where are the suppliers? So think where the tomatoes are growing right now for this project. Now, I don't know. So I went and I looked up, and I don't have Foxconn bill of material. They make a lot of things, and I'm sure they're not going to send a copy to me. But this I grabbed from some high-tech manufacturer, and this is what the global supply chains. So this looks like spaghetti to me, I mean, things are going left and right, and this way, that way, and now we're a little node, okay? Whitewater, if you want, or this Wisconsin area, is like a node, a hub. Think of ourselves as a hub. And then, now, it is impractical to think all the stuff from all over the world is all just going to enter into Wisconsin. I mean, I know you're worried about population growth. We might be worried about too much population growth if we got everything. I know it might not be too bad, but I'm just saying that's too much. I mean, it's just not going to happen. You have to be realistic. So what we need to do is think what parts of the nodes we can bring in and how we have to collaborate. That will have implications on the way we what kind of graduates we have, how we're going to manage these chains. So we're just trying to bring more of those nodes into, and those linkages into our backyard. So what we want to do is, I think this is what the research I've been doing, the people I've been talking to, and this is confirmed, that they want to bring the supply chains closer. You see, operationally, it's very difficult to, actually I went to one factory, I can't tell because it's confidential, they're making cars for $3,000. And I found out how they could do it is they had the entire supply base in one giant campus. Except for the tires, they made everything. And then just think about the lead times. And if you've got a quality problem, you just walk down the road. Okay, so that kind of thought in terms of trying to bring the logistics, the supply chains closer is going to help. Okay, and that's why I think they're thinking Wisconsin. I think it's also not just trying to make Wisconsin happy. I think it's a business. I mean, they're not going to do things just to make us happy. It's to make their business profitable. Okay, and the other thing I'm finding, so it's going to be Wisconsin, and they're going to go Wisconsin. If they can't find Wisconsin, then they're going to look for outside suppliers. I mean, they have to. And then the other thing I've been told is they're working on a very systematic basis. You see, when I looked at it, I said, okay, let's look at this bill of material and try to see where all these, I mean, it's too complicated, too massive. I can't understand it. So I think they're going to do systematically, and then I think they're going to go what we call a supply chain, upstream and downstream. So upstream is we're going to customers, and downstream is, downstream is going to customers, upstream is where the suppliers are, right? First tier, second tier. I think it's going to be a slow transition. I know you're talking fast. Yeah, they're doing fast, but these things are very complicated, right? They don't want to get it wrong. And so it's going to take a while to get your supply chains coming. And so it also, I know they're talking about speed, but I think as citizens, as a population, as potential suppliers, we have to be patient in the way we think, and think in terms of long-term perspective, not to be too impatient. So what I did was I also wanted to understand what is Foxconn, what's their belief system. I think it's beyond just speed, okay? So speed, of course, is essential, but quality. If we've got a little, iPad, and it's got 1,000 parts in it, and if one part is bad, it's going to mess the company's reputation. think about the level of quality that's desired to make that product. And they are an engineering company, so they've got an engineering, a science. So we do have science programs, and many of our programs in business have a good deal of science in them. So they're looking for that. They're looking for also a degree of flexibility. Okay, flexibility is, there might be some machines you see are what we call CNC machines or robots. They allow for flexibility, but more in terms of, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility you can gain from supply chains. There are ways you can hedge currency transactions. There's a whole sphere of that. So I know I'm giving it a little more nebulous, but I'm giving some ideas that they have. And of course, they need to see monetary savings. That's their, the cost. I mean, we expect our electronics to get cheaper and cheaper every year, okay? We don't expect everything else to go cheaper, but the electronics we do. Okay, so how does that fit in? There are certain things, and I think these kind of match what was said. I mean, maybe not as specific. First is, many of you might be interested in becoming suppliers, whether it's a logistics or whatever. So first thing they're going to look is core capability. So if you've got a warehouse facility, and you say, I'm going to go into the transportation business, maybe that might not be the best idea. Work with what you know and what you're good at. I think that's the first recommendation. And then they talk about digital readiness. I don't know exactly what it means, and I don't know what kind of sophistication. That I can't answer to you. Nowadays what we do is with our suppliers and buyers, we actually have visibility if you're in a tightly controlled family of the chain. So in fact, I know some companies allow their upstream players, one or two tier upstream players, to actually have visibility of the production schedules downstream. That's to minimize the lead time and any excess inventory. So maybe that's what they're talking about. I'm not sure about that. And then there's a lot of, they want external validation in terms of your capabilities. That's what I'm speculating in terms of the customer input survey. There are elements out there. So you have to combine what they're looking for, their value system. So when you do your applications online for requests for proposals, this is some of the things that you have to look at. So a couple of things is, first, can you build that kind of product? And be very honest. I mean, you can try to, like say you're making making bicycles, and you say, I'll try to do tricycles. That probably might fly, okay? Then what you do is, the other thing is also scaling. Say you're talking about you can make 100, and then you say, I want to make 1,000 units. So the question is, do you have that core capability to deliver in quality and time? You have to then convince them, and that's in my viewpoint. And then, what you want to do is also, in your industry, there's probably some certifications, right? So many of our, as career people, you're certified in, like CPA and finance. But I'm sure in industries, you have certification. So I believe they're looking for certification. Again, that's an external validity in terms of what you can deliver. Okay, so I think this was one of the marketplaces, the websites where there's a portal. And I think they come out, there were actually, I believe, they were looking for logistical providers. So that's one of the things a lot of people, in fact, our own students, one of my own students, she has a trucking firm, I mean, so they're, so maybe I'll tell her, hey, why don't you say? But there's, by the way, one thing I'll tell you, this is a good business logistics because they are so busy. I mean, one of the problems I think is going to happen is having suppliers that actually have the capacity. That's going to be a problem. Okay, so ultimately, tying back to Whitewater, capacity issue. At Whitewater, we graduate about, our supply chain program is not a massive program. We have about 40, graduates a year, and every single graduate is hired. And we have, I think, one of the highest starting salaries, about $57,000 a year starting salary, which is very good. Question is, I'm speculating in terms of number of supply chain majors that they're going to be hiring, but I would say that at least 1,000 would be needed in the long run, at least. Now, what kind of people are they hiring? this is again, I'm going to make some conjecture here. First, I think they want people that can deal with, one of the things you're talking about, hiring, and this is what we're trying to focus in our universities, not just PowerPoints and just multiple choice, rather how you build systems and how you deal with uncertainty to create new structures. We have students actually work on company projects, so real world, I think. Secondly, what we also focus upon is global. When you're dealing with links in China, in Taiwan, in Japan, and all of the world, we want students that are proficient and comfortable in dealing with these international elements. Third thing, I think, is rigor. I think we, and this is as a supplier, we need to have quality products, And finally, I think this is coming, again, a bias. To me, this is, this Foxconn is like manna from heaven. To me, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. I think our universities and industries and all our partners really work together, and we can create something wonderful. And I think that it's not just some top rich people getting rich. I think what really to me matters, because I see a lot of people that make $10,000 a year, and it's a struggle, and they're my friends. And many of them have these part-time jobs and transient jobs, I call them, with low benefits. And, it'd be really nice for people in the lower class to actually be able to get some very nice jobs. And we could be partners in it. If we did that, I would be very happy. So that's just my little spiel, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Our next guest has extensive knowledge in workforce and what it would take to support this Foxconn development. So please join me in welcoming Amber Lawrence.
Sitting here, so you haven't gotten scared and walked out the door yet with all of this information. Definitely being from the state of Wisconsin, growing up in rural Wisconsin on a dairy farm and going to the big city of Oshkosh to go to school, hearing about the crazy growth and things that we are going to be experiencing here over the next few years is definitely, it's exciting, but I can imagine it's also a little scary. I mean, I live currently in the Fox Valley. That's where I went to school, met my husband, my family lives there. So although there's a great opportunity here for all of us within the state of Wisconsin, there are a lot of things going on, a lot of challenges that we need to overcome. And so definitely when Marie talks about being exciting and having a lot of growth opportunity and potential, there definitely, I know, are a lot of employers that are really skeptical and kind of scared about what the future, excited about the opportunity, but really afraid of what might happen here as we grow and as we move into this new segment of work for all of us. So thanks for having me today. I've been with Manpower for 20 years since I got out of school. Started as a recruiter and have worked with a number of companies throughout Wisconsin. So according to a McKinsey survey, up to 45% of the tasks people do every day will be taken over by technology in the next 2 years. So outside of Foxconn, outside of everything else that is happening in our environment, technology is upon us regardless if Foxconn is here or not. And I think that's important to understand because we're thinking of everything, and of course this presentation is because Foxconn is moving into our area. But outside of that, there's a lot of things that are going on within our organizations, and the pace of technology is only going to speed up because Foxconn is here and because companies are going to emerge that are rising with Foxconn. But all of these barriers and all of these changes will already have been here to some extent, regardless if Foxconn is here or not. So this just brings it more to the forefront and it brings it to something that we need to take care of sooner than later, so we're prepared to deal with the changes in our environment because Foxconn is coming. So, let's see here. There we go. So a little overview about Manpower Group as an organization. We're headquartered right in Milwaukee in the state of Wisconsin. We serve over 80 countries throughout the world, so we have a global perspective on what happens not only here locally in the economy, but on a global basis as well. And in terms of staffing, we put over 600,000 people out to work throughout the globe every single year. So we have a global perspective, but here locally, I talk to companies every single day. So we definitely know what's going on, you know, in our relationships locally as well. So we already know, every single one of you feels what's happening with the talent shortages that are already occurring throughout the United States and throughout Wisconsin. Manpower has a recruitment difficulty index, and that's what this slide shows. You can see how, so the blue is the ease of hiring people, and as we get to 10 on the hardest side, it turns into that orange-red color. So you can see in 2012, we had quite a bit more blue on the map than we have today, and there are still pockets of opportunity within the United States where unemployment is a little bit higher. But overall, we are facing a talent shortage. We're already in the midst of a talent shortage throughout the United States. Here's the map for Wisconsin. A little bit more scary. In 2012, we had a lot of bluish, orange kind of areas. And today, we're almost all orange. And even in those pockets where we have the blue, I would challenge, and you probably feel, that depending on what skills you're looking for, you're currently still having a hard time finding people to fill the positions that you are currently looking to fill. So even though unemployment might be a little bit higher, and by a little, I say maybe 4 or 5%, it's still pretty difficult, depending on the types of workforce that you're looking for, to be able to find the people that you need to perform your work. So all of that without Foxconn, right? So now you add Foxconn, Haribo, some of the other organizations, the startups that will be coming into place with Foxconn coming, and that just changes your whole perspective on what we would be looking moving forward. At a record low, that happened earlier this year. And so right now, we need to change our philosophy. We need to change how we think about recruiting, how we're attracting talent, how we're retaining the talent that we have now, and how we are utilizing the people that we have on our payroll today, and how we're making them more beneficial for our organizations down the road. So we need to start building our talent instead of just being able to hire from the outside. So Manpower has come up with 4 strategies on how we think, 4 buckets really, in how you can approach your hiring and retaining talent for the future. So they are buy, borrow, build, and bridge. So the 4 Bs. I'm going to go through those quickly here just to give you an overview of the types of things that you should be thinking about within your organizations. And this is for all organizations, regardless if you're manufacturing, banking, education. I mean, all of these, the skills and the requirements to do these positions really gauge through all these sectors. So first, the easiest thing, right, that everybody likes to look at and talk about is wages. It's probably not, maybe not the easiest thing to increase in our organizations, but it's the easiest thing to look at, and an easy way for us to compare ourselves to the other companies that are in our area. So this is the Wisconsin wage growth from 2017 to 2018. You can see across the state of Wisconsin, overall growth was around 2.9%. We're a little bit lower than the national average. The national average of wage growth for the U.S. last year was 3.2%. So what that really means is that we're still able to find employees by paying them a little, even though we're paying a little bit less. It'll be interesting to see how that changes this year. But last year, our top wage growth was in finance, insurance, more of our administrative type roles, where we fell a little bit short of the national average was in our manufacturing and trades. So it'll be interesting again to see, because I know that we've seen wage growth in, especially in the manufacturing and trade areas. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. So outside of wages, I'm sure if you haven't already made movement in some of these other areas, you're looking to do that. We need to make sure that we have competitive health care and benefits packages. Many employers now are giving bonuses, sign-on bonuses, productivity bonuses, all kinds of different things that outside of increasing a wage will help with the overall wages that they're offering their employees. PTO, tuition, on-the-job training. Some companies are bringing in people at a lower wage, but are training them up to be able to do the types of positions that they need them to do. That helps them be able to pay a little bit more on the front end, but they're able to attract the talent that they need because they're providing that on-the-job training. And then they can boost them up the wage scale as they are, meeting the requirements that they need them to be performing. So all of these things will hopefully lead to decreased turnover. I know we have a company we work with in the Milwaukee area that started giving out popcorn at lunch. Just a way for people to stop sitting at the table and eating their lunch by themselves, and people getting up, getting popcorn. It helped, believe it or not. The simple things, the employee picnics, the fun Fridays at work. Those are simple things that you can do outside of these things too, to keep that family atmosphere and keep people interested in their work and make it a fun workplace. The second is borrow. So many companies have already looked at this. They've already done a number of these things already, but it's going to continue to be something that organizations need to look at and see if there's something that they can release to an independent contractor or a contract firm. So instead of employing people to do these types of positions specifically just within your company, look at outsourcing certain activities and you letting them do what they're experts in, which will allow you to become an expert in what you do every day. On-call workers, this excludes day labor, but really what they're talking about here is providing flexible work schedules, part-time employees. Maybe taking someone that wouldn't otherwise be in the workforce if we wouldn't provide them a flexible schedule. So someone that's retired, for example, that maybe just wants to work 20 hours a week, maybe a stay-at-home parent that can only work from 9 to 3 because they want to be home to take care of their kids in the evening. So by making those job opportunities available, someone that went to school for accounting, for example, that decides to stay home and take care of their family can then still have that sense of belonging and can still continue their degree, but on a part-time basis, helping out and feeling worthy of the skills that they earn, but still being able to take care of the things at home that are important to them. And with millennials, that's increasingly important. They don't want to work 55, 60 hours a week. They really want that work-life balance. And so taking that into consideration could help you, retain more people. build. Manpower was part of the Digital Manufacturing Design Innovation Institute. And this is a coalition of companies that were put together to talk about how the digital revolution is going to change and impact the work that we do every single day. And within a few years, we identified 165 new positions that are not in existence today that will be implemented in our workplaces, in our manufacturing environments. And so the type of work that we're doing, not only in our office buildings, but in our manufacturing environments, is going to become much more techy, right? And we need to make sure that we have the people to be able to do those things. As we look at our organizations, as your organizations, companies that are already here, and how their work environment is going to change over the next few years, we really need to get people educated. We need to get people up to speed with what's going on, so we can so we make sure that we have the skilled talent that we need moving forward. Manpower worked with Rockwell on the Academy of Advanced Manufacturing. Some of you may have heard about this already. We've been doing it for about a year now, but where we have taken military veterans and we have interviewed them, we've taken them, making sure that they have the right skills necessary to learn the advanced manufacturing positions, but then we brought them into a training facility at Rockwell where they have in-class learning and on-the-job learning for a 12-week period of time, and we train them. We take the skills that they've learned from the military and we transform that into how they can make it work in a manufacturing environment. So it's been very successful. We're in our third class now, and every single person that's graduated from the program has graduated with a job offer, sometimes making 2 and 3 times what they made before. So does everybody need to go through to this type of extent? Not necessarily, but looking at the types of positions that we have and how we might be able to do something similar to that within our own organization. We're not going to be able to just hire. Research that Manpower has done shows that our organizations will be needing less people in administrative roles and more people in manufacturing, customer service, customer-facing roles, and IT. So that receptionist that's been answering your phone and has been taking those, forwarding those calls to you, may not be needed with the phone systems and, with how we communicate. So what can we do with that person 2 years from now, because we don't want to lose them as an employee, we can't afford to lose anyone right now. But how do we take that person and put them into one of these other areas where we know that they'll be able to flourish and grow in their career? So there are things that we need to be thinking about within the organization to know what types of positions we potentially see going away over the next couple of years. But then we need to start having conversations with our employees to say, what do you want to do? What does your career plan look like? What do you want to be doing a couple of years from now? Do you see yourself moving into manufacturing capacity? Not necessarily working on the production floor, but a lot of our roles will become more digital. So is there something that we can put that person through now? What kind of training can we give them now while they're still in their current role that will be gearing them up for a couple of years from now when that role no longer exists? So those are the 4 standard strategies: buy, borrow, build, and bridge. Happy to talk to any of you more about it. As many of us here today, we could probably talk about these topics for hours since we're so passionate about them. But we need to become really good at doing a lot of different things. We can't rely just on our wages. We can't rely just on our benefits. We can't rely on being able to hire the quality people we need right off the street. We need to be putting training programs in place and moving with our people to should change with the pace of the times. So we're going to need more people coming to our area, but we need to take care of the people that we have here first and make sure that we're preparing them for the workforce of tomorrow. So Elmer Winter is our founder, and I think somebody made this comment a little bit earlier, but wouldn't it be great if in some way we could help make people employable? And that holds true just as much today as it did 60 years ago when he started our company. So any way that we can, help people gain the skills that they need to make themselves more employable and be long-term better citizens is a good thing. Thank you.
Again, for your insights, and I think since we're running behind our time a little bit, I'd like to invite our panelists up here, but I think we'll take some general questions from the audience. So if you just give us a second to get to the audience.
And I'd like to ask Marie her comments on the difference between what you described happening in the cities in California and Seattle, where they were really startups compared to Foxconn, which is a very established, huge corporation, and how that would affect new companies coming in rather than where startups where they maybe had the trade or estate. I don't see that happening at Foxconn. Just wondered your comments on that.
So are you asking if it's different because Foxconn is bigger, or
Well,
if it's going to spin off?
would we expect startups coming out of Foxconn the way they happened in California and Seattle?
Based on what I've seen and what we see from companies that are of Foxconn size, like you look at HP, you look at Microsoft, you look at Google, I think it's a truism that there will be people within those companies that will always kind of get to the point they can no longer go high in that company. They will take their talents and they will go incubate. So I think as long as Foxconn's not restrictive on non-competes, IP, and things like that, and there's no punitive anything regulatory in the state that would prevent that, I think we will see that. I know that there's been some discussions about the way that non-competes and non-disclosures are handled here that may have stymied health tech for a while, but I think that's been fixed. So I do think you will see that, because you'll see people that just, especially younger people, they will go, they'll want to learn as much as they can, they have a strong growth mindset, and then they have a passion to not be an employee. So I think they will maybe move into a position of being a supplier. And again, it will relate on who owns the IP. Say that they develop a patent for Foxconn, is it truly theirs or does the company own it? That makes a difference. One thing that really made Silicon Valley work is that non-competes in California are not enforced. The only time non-competes are enforced is if it's directly proven to be punitive. So that is why there's this history of innovation there, because it's almost in the culture. Like you go to HP, you learn something, you start a company, you go to that company, you start a company, and on and on. So did that answer what you're asking?
I wonder too, and Matt, maybe you can comment, but I think with that accelerator investment program that they started with Aurora Healthcare and a few others, I think maybe they're moving in that direction to support other startups.
It's Northwestern Mutual, Aurora, and Johnson Controls, and that's the whole concept, is to invite people in, let them, and with the innovation centers as well, let them play with the technology and then help them get started, start their own business. If they come up with something that is a practical application that Foxconn hasn't thought about it, they're like, this is great. It's just more product for us to produce. So that's their mindset, is they want to create an ecosystem. You will hear them talk all the time about 8K, 5G ecosystem. And that's what they want to create in the state of Wisconsin, is this ecosystem, and they need a lot of partners. And they talk about partners all the time as well.
Any other questions?
In regards to the attraction of second and third tier suppliers to Foxconn, beyond an educated and available workforce, what are those second and third tier suppliers going to be looking for in communities? What's going to be attractive to them? And also maybe what is the geographical distance that they would want to be away from Foxconn?
Should I answer that? Okay, so generally, in manufacturing, I'm giving a manufacturing context because it's a little different. It depends if you're the transportation provider, that's different. But say you're in manufacturing and you're looking for second tier, third tier. I think what's really important is industrial parks. So dotted around the state are industrial parks. That's found to be, a good location. I think what matters is not how close it is. I mean, it of course helps, but Wisconsin, the infrastructure is pretty good. So you have to look at the paths in terms of infrastructure. That's a hard question because you have to understand what exactly the second tier supplier is producing. So I can't give a good example. I think what matters is good infrastructure, good regulations, and also having a good workforce. So if you're talking about having engineering graduates, then you need the competent engineering graduates. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I don't know if I have a straight answer on that. Thanks. Go ahead.
Well, to jump in on that from the question of why would a company pick coming here, I think was your question, like why would they come? I think when you look at it from a talent standpoint too, it's not only like the industrial park and the distance, but if you move a company, what happens with their family, right? Because you're not only moving the employee, you're moving their spouse. So do you have an area where there's enough other jobs that a trailing spouse could get a job? If the spouse is a teacher, will the Department of Ed be flexible in getting her credential up and running quick? Will nursing licensing be made fast? And we've seen this in California that as military spouses come in, right? You've got people that are very well credentialed in the state they came from, and it was only over a period of years in California to figure out how to fast track those people so the trailing spouse also had a job. So I think when companies look to relocate here, it has to be that holistic look of not just the facilities, the supply chain, but what happens to the whole family that they're asking to come? Are the schools good? Is there access to things like that? So I think, and to Amber's point, it is holistic. It's the keeping people that are here now in good jobs, but is there room for that next person coming in that's not of the company itself? It's the fringe to that company.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I don't know, my mic's not working well. Connectivity is important, right? So 5G infrastructure, so you can connect real time with them, I think is going to be very important. I also think what's going to be very important from a connectivity standpoint is they do keep track of their carbon footprint, right? So positioning yourselves or your business park in a way that minimizes, its carbon footprint probably gives you a competitive advantage as well. So those are two practical things. I don't think they have kind of like any geographical boundaries that I'm aware of right now. We haven't really gotten into those in-depth conversations, but probably the closer you are, you probably have a little bit better competitive advantage as well.
Great. Another question, I think, right behind Moroney.
When this deal was announced initially, there was a lot of trepidation, even negative political talk, and I haven't, here we are in the heat of a political season right now, and I haven't seen a whole lot about Foxconn lately. Would that tend to indicate that even from a political standpoint, certain sides have recognized that this is probably a better deal than what we would have thought? It surprises me I haven't seen more about Foxconn in the last couple of weeks on TV.
Oh, you want to take that? It's still out there. So from a political standpoint, it depends on what area of the state. I think the further you are away from the area, you see more discussion on a political level.
Any other questions in the audience here? Yes.
Yeah, has there been any evidence of Foxconn encouraging its existing suppliers in other countries, their home base, for example, to set up here in Wisconsin? Or are they looking more for new suppliers to establish themselves here?
So their primary focus right now, and has been, is to look at the existing supply chain base here in Wisconsin and figure out what they can utilize of it. And there are some suppliers that are only from overseas, right? So short term, how logistically do we get their products over for the plant that's operational by 2020? But long term, where do we locate those facilities as they come through. So those planning operations right now, they're going through, and I think the professor had a very good comment. It's a lot about costs as well, right? So they're going through and trying to take a look at, logistics. What are the costs on the logistics side to have facilities located? What are the costs related, to that? So those are all things that are actively being planned or looked at. You got to realize this is, like I said, less than a year ago. We hadn't even signed the WC contract yet, right? So there's a lot of work that they're doing and research that they're doing, trying to figure out exactly who they need to attract over, and ideally, as many suppliers as they can get from the state or from the region. That's a better solution.
In supply chain, they use a term called total cost of ownership. So it's not a cost of just I get a bid and the price, but you have to build in what is the quality, what is the lead time, and can they innovate. So it's the total package, right? And I think the long term, if we can have the suppliers, and it's going to take time because the downstream players need to get settled, and then bring in the next, and then the next, and the next. So it takes time. That's how it happened in the maquilas. Initially, they were just assembling, and then the ancillary industries came and built up. So I guess, there needs to be a good story, and based on evidence that Southeast Wisconsin is globally competitive, and beyond any kind of benefits, subsidies, or anything provided, it has to stand on its own. This is just the starting point.
And I just said one thing, that's why it was very important for us to show that we, from a state and local level, can deliver on speed, right? So we've shown that we can do it. And so that gives them a greater comfort level that when some of the suppliers that need to bring over, we can do the same thing for them.
I've got a two-pronged question. Number one, was there a lot of research done on the number of employees, the 13,000 employees, and how many would be coming into the state needing new housing, et cetera, et cetera? What percentage of that might be there? And then currently in the Racine, Kenosha area, and maybe even out to here, have you heard and seen an increase in purchasing of land with speculators that are actually looking to provide the housing? Just kind of a feel for that as we're going forward.
Yes, definitely to the second question. I think the Racine area, it's pretty amazing. Some of the stories that I've heard from the home builders. We're a state that traditionally has not had national home builders. Here they're definitely snooping around for land. Once the announcement was made, they were here snooping around, all right? So on that standpoint, and then really a lot of the focus is, on housing is locally, right? A lot of housing decisions are made at the local level. And so the county executive of Racine County, I think, did an awesome thing, pulling together a housing summit where we brought in the communities and local developers to start the discussion about housing and how we're going to address this. And much like the comment earlier, a lot of it is density, right? In order to really create workforce housing, we're going to have to probably go up, right? And have a different style of housing than we've had in the region typically in the past. You've seen some of that in Milwaukee, the revitalization, but I think you're going to see more and more communities, if they take a look at it, it probably makes a lot of sense, not only for them to attract employees for the businesses that are in the area, but also financially provide the basic infrastructure services. So I think it's going to be a catalyst for a lot of innovative things for how we live, work, and play.
Any other questions? I have one and anybody here could answer, but to my point that I made earlier about the population growth, and just thinking about, and maybe Marie, you and Amber would talk about this, but, as this develops and the ecosystem around it, how does that drive, have you seen that, or you did see that, but how does that then drive more people coming to get that kind of schooling, either moving here for K-12 or the technical or the higher ed, And then, what happens then in terms of, trying to keep them here and even keeping our own people here in the state?
Yeah, I'll start and then jump to you. What we've seen in Silicon Valley is obviously they have very strong universities first, right? We had Stanford and Berkeley, so we had the ecosystem of universities and those early companies. But then, it's like that snowball, right? The school gets a great reputation for creating people that want to work in an industry that attracts more. And then companies have to bring more people because those people created more than their capacity, and so it all grows up. But I think the challenge gets to be is creating enough other things around it that as the family develops, or as people think about like the kids staying in that area, maybe the kids don't want to go into computer science, which was dad's business, maybe they want to go into something else. So to have a very robust economy and ecosystem with lots of opportunities is what keeps them there. Because I think, your stats about the college kids, the up to 17 age group, we don't want that flight. And I'll admit, I was one of the guilty people over the years who was recruiting your UW grads to Microsoft. So when you want to hire them back, I know where they all are because I took them there. So I think, we're going to need to go to these other areas and do that. Wisconsiners from here who are there now maybe with small kids, the attraction is grandma and grandpa are here, right? So there's going to have to be some concentrated effort to get that boomerang group back. But in terms of why we would attract people here, I think if you build it, they will come is a real truism to look at for this, because Foxconn is going to attract one type of person, but other companies that are here may attract others. Like, we can't underestimate the natural resources. If I'm into kayaking or camping, I'm going to look at Wisconsin long before I'm going to look at many other states that might also be trying to attract me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a lot of people do go to school here and then leave because the grass is greener on the other side, or they want to explore new opportunities. I think to some extent we need to create a reason for them to stay, but we also need to work as a community and as an area to market ourselves. I don't know that we've ever done a good job in Wisconsin specifically. We hear about ads in Minneapolis to draw people to that area of the country. But our environment here isn't a whole lot different than Minneapolis. So if anything, they're a little bit more cold and they do get a little bit more snow. So I think it's all in how you market yourselves. And if but not one, we can't rely on the state of Wisconsin to do all of our marketing for us to get people here. We as a community and as communities throughout the state need to put together action plans and development plans on how we're going to attract people to come and work, not only in the state, but in our communities, and what's going to attract those people. We've long been known as a state with low crime, with great schools, with the natural resources, and we don't market that very well. So not only on a state level, but on a local level, why would people want to move here? And how are we going to approach that when we go out to other states and we start taking back some of the people that they took away from us? So it's really going to be a collaborative approach. It's not going to be one person or one organization that's going to be able to do that for us. It's really coming together as a county, as a city, as an area, and deciding how we want to tackle that, because it's really a collaboration between all segments of the economy, not just tourism, not just our education system, not just our corporations, but everyone really needs to bring their heads together to figure out how we're going to solve the problem and how we're going to get people here.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of you. I know we ran over time here. I believe the speakers are willing to stay for a few minutes if you have, and there's hand up at the back.
Yeah, just one last question. One Martinez with Keep Real Estate. In regards to what the gentleman was talking about housing, is Foxconn or the state of Wisconsin offering any incentives for construction, or would you guys be looking at private investors to help some of those developments?
So we have current programs in the state through WCEDA that we're evaluating and looking at, how functional and how well those programs work. But as far as additional programs in the state, Right now, no, we're not looking at that. We're seeing a lot of interest in the private sector to step up, to meet the housing challenge. So, we're going to be monitoring that very, very closely. As far as Foxconn goes, I think right now they're really focused on getting the plant up and operational and trying to figure out their supply logistics. And the workforce thing will probably come once they get that figured out. So, as the professor indicated earlier, they're going at it in a very systematic approach, trying to take a look at what decisions we need to make now, and trying to address that. So that comes a little bit later, but it's coming. And transportation is another one, right? Housing and transportation, workforce, they all go together. And so those are things we're having lots of discussions about. But as far as new programs right now, not right immediately, but we'll kind of see what we need to do, and we have to be flexible as well, right? State and local governments, we're not really known for that, and that's one of the things that we're learning on this project from Foxconn is we have to be flexible as we go.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate our guests coming in and speaking. Thank you to everyone here. I think if anyone has any additional questions, they'll stick around for a few minutes. We did put their emails on the program, and we will be emailing out the PowerPoint presentation. So thank you, everybody, for coming.